Ezekiel 37, 1 to 14. In the parallel book of Revelations, you can locate the four winds of the earth. These are revealed as forces affecting the nations again. These forces result in the troubling or change of governmental orders. I'm just laying this foundation so that you know who is in charge. The four winds of the earth are politics, economy, military, and religion. These forces could be channeled to either the making or ruining of nations, depending on the dispositions of the leaders and the people. For instance, national ruin was the result in many African states with the emergence of tyrants after independence, the likes of Idi Amin Dada of Uganda, Mobutu Sese Seko of Democratic Republic of Congo, Jim Bedel Bokassa of Central African Republic, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo of Equatorial Guinea, General Sani Abacha of Nigeria, and many other ambitious men whose dreams, whose drives and delusions unleashed a devastating storm into the political space of their respective nations. This political storm resulted or has resulted, as the case may be, in economic ruin as these men enrich themselves at the expense of their respective nations. At some point in Uganda, for instance, currency was printed just to satisfy the whims and caprices of Idi Amin without recourse to any principle of monetary policy management. Mobutu Sese Seko, on his part, amassed so much wealth through corruption that he was reportedly richer than his country and appropriated many of his country's assets as he plunged into infrastructural collapse. Bokassa, intolerant of opposition politicians whom he allegedly killed and ate or fed to crocodiles, diverted and squandered the little wealth his country had. General Sani Abacha became the most brutal dictator in the history of Nigeria, eliminating perceived opponents by means of a deadly killer squad and stashing away over $3 billion of public money in foreign accounts. And there are people in this nation today who still pay heavy compliments to General Sani Abacha because they benefited from his wickedness. Obiang, who is still the president of Equatorial Guinea, is reportedly worth $600 million. He is said to have taken full control of his country's national treasury and deposited more than $500 million into accounts controlled by himself and his family, claiming that he did this to prevent civil servants from being tempted to engage in corrupt practices. It will be observed that the emergence of these African dictators was as a result of the invasion of the military wing, manifesting through coup d'etats or civil wars, which in some cases resulted in counter-coups or extended civil wars. In more recent times, especially since the turn of the century, the wind of religion and the wind of the military have been unleashed upon the continent of Africa and upon the nations of the earth like a genie in a bottle, manifesting in the form of terrorist organizations from Boko Haram in Nigeria to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb and Al-Shabaab in the Horn of Africa, from Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda to the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, and from Hezbollah in Lebanon to Hamas in Palestine. Conversely, the four winds of the earth have also served in ushering nations into seasons of genuine or perceived transformation. For example, the formation of the United States of America was preceded by the stirring of the combined winds of religion, economy, politics, and military in Europe as well as in America. Many of the colonies which formed the United States were created by settlers who fled religious persecution in Europe. This quest for religious freedom and the discipline that characterized the Puritan migrants became the fuel for the highly profitable agricultural, and commercial activities that produced economic prosperity in the colonies. The political wind blew when the colonies declared independence, and this declaration was accompanied by the War of Independence, upon which was laid the foundation of a prosperous nation that has become the most powerful country on earth today. Similarly, the formation of the Islamic kingdoms, the largest of which was the Ottoman Empire, that later transformed to modern-day Turkey under the leadership of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, was inspired by this interplay of the four winds of the earth. Other cases in point include the economic miracle of the Asian tigers, including Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, and Singapore, as well as the Asian giant, China. It is gladdening to know that the four winds of the earth, no matter how ferocious, are under God's control. Revelation chapter 7, verse 1 to 3. Revelation 7, 1 to 3. After these things, I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, on the sea, or on any tree. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. May the seal of the Almighty come upon your forehead. In the name of Jesus. Now let's look at Nigeria and the four winds of the earth. Let us now bring this back home by taking a brief look at the interplay of political, economic, military, and religious winds in the journey of the Nigerian nation so far. Our pre-independence history saw the emergence of empires, kingdoms, fiefdoms, and communal political arrangements whose rise and fall were driven by military expeditions motivated by economic interests and in some cases clad in religious motives. Since independence, these winds, operating through political power blocks, have produced governmental change from one regime to another. Between 1966 and 1999, it was often a case of one military government taking over from a civilian government or from another military government, citing, among other factors, economic mismanagement and political corruption, and expressing a messianic mission to correct the blunders, even if insincerely. In the democratic arrangements that preceded the return to civil rule in 1999, such as the 1993 elections, religion was a much more silent factor among the four winds in the determination of political outcomes. That was why the June 12, 1993 elections could produce victory for a Muslim ticket. However, following the return to civil rule, religion has become a major factor in the determination of election outcomes, especially since the 2003 elections, in which General Muhammadu Buhari first contested for the presidency, as he has often been erroneously associated with religious fundamentalism. The import of this factor got to what some might have thought would be a crescendo in the 2011 elections, when for the first time in Nigeria's history, a pastor stepped into politics as running mate of General Buhari. Nevertheless, in the year 2015, a crucial year in the unfolding history of our nation, the four winds of the earth are about to hit the nation in one combined storm that will not leave her the same. The purpose of this broadcast, therefore, is to give a timely warning before the storm arrives, like Apostle Paul did on that journey to Rome in the Alexandrian shape in Acts 27 that we just read. It's also to offer an alternative pathway, even if the warnings and the proposals are rejected, as occurred in Paul's case. But first, let us examine the state of the nation and show how we have stirred the ship of state with difficulty, ignoring the warning signs, laying claim to fictitious economic achievements, celebrating political institutions with weak foundations, allowing criminality and rebellion to fester in the guise of religion, and denying the seeming comatose state of our military and its ability to withstand the pressure, thereby suggesting that our nation, subjecting our nation to a depth of instability never before experienced since the Civil War. The state of the nation. Today, Nigeria is supposedly the largest economy in Africa, surpassing South Africa and Egypt with a GDP of $522 billion, a value obtained since the rebasing of the economy in April 2014. With this nominal GDP, Nigeria is now the 26th largest economy in the world. It will appear then that our aspiration to become one of the 20 largest economies in the world by 2020 is within reach. However, whenever the GDP figures are brandished by the government as signs of achievement, red flags start emerging as the people look around and wonder if GDP stands for Gari Don Peme. Because even staple foods are becoming unaffordable to the so-called ordinary Nigerian. In any case, we need not go into these socio-economic realities that challenge the bogus claims of economic growth. Let us simply dwell in the realm of economic statistics with which experts have often attempted to blind the eyes of Nigerians. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, as well as Trading Economics, a resource center for economic indicators for countries the world over, including Nigeria, there was a decline in average GDP growth rate between the third quarter of 2011 and the first quarter of 2014, with growth declining to an average rate of 4.5% within that period, compared to earlier rates as well as the 2014 rate of 6%. Were these not signs of staggering economy? Signs that were strongly denied by the government until recently, when the fact would no longer be hidden following the fall in oil prices. One also wonders if this decline was not a pointer to the fact that the economy could no longer sustain the massive corruption and the fuel subsidy regime, which then informed the attempted subsidy removal and the increase in fuel price in January 2012, a policy which the people protested, defying intimidation until the protests were crushed by a combined force of political intrigues, economic sellouts, and military deployment, with no action taken against the major culprits in the subsidy fraud. Also, one wonders if, despite all the acclaimed benefits of the rebasing exercise, it was not mere recourse to plastic surgery as an attempted solution to an internal disease in a last-minute effort to window dress the economy and attract investment rather than address the problems fundamentally, considering the fact that it was done in the first quarter of 2014. The gap between the bogus GDP claims and the economic realities of Nigerians is seen in the fact that Nigeria, according to the World Bank, has one of the lowest GDP per capita based on purchasing power parity in the world, at the 123rd position out of 185 countries, thus revealing that the value of our currency as an import-dependent economy makes our GDP claims of little worth. Worse still, the level of inequality in the distribution of wealth that shows that a select few have cornered the wealth of the nation is seen in a Gini coefficient of 43.8, which is one of the highest inequality indicators in the world, according to World Bank statistics. To explain to Nigerians what this means, the leadership newspapers of March 1, 2014 revealed that in a population of about 170 million people, only about 12 Nigerians control 1/8 of the entire Nigerian economy. More damning revelations were unveiled in an article titled "Bitter Truths About the Economy the Jonathan Government Does Not Want Nigerians to Know," published by Premium Times on December 22, 2014. In it, inconsistencies in statistical indicators being brandished by the government were unveiled. The fact was revealed that in the first 5 years of civil rule, that is from 1999, oil prices were not as high as they were between 2009 and 2013. Yet, whereas in those first 5 years, we had fiscal surpluses. Now we have been having fiscal deficits despite the relatively more favorable oil prices between 2009 and 2013. It will also interest Nigerians to know that within the same period, when oil prices were high, all other oil-producing countries recorded surpluses and deployed those surpluses to long-term infrastructure projects, while Nigeria was recording deficits and borrowing to service the deficits. Again, despite the fact that only about 70% of the budget is implemented annually in Nigeria, we keep borrowing and accumulating debt supposedly to service the contrived deficit. Also, whereas growth has supposedly remained strong, we have never been as indebted as we are now since our exit from the Paris Club, with a $3.5 billion external debt and a 2.2 trillion naira domestic debt, even though what the debt has been used to achieve remains to be seen. Considering the negative correlation between growth and public debt, does this not suggest a statistical window dressing of our claims of growth? Why do we store our excess earnings in foreign reserves that give us a paltry 3% interest while we accumulate debt at an average interest rate of 13 to 15%? Even worse is the fact that, according to Chatham House, oil theft averages $3 to $8 billion annually. Yet, this monumental loss of an industrial scale does not reflect negatively in our growth claims. Definitely, some voodoo economies are cooking our books. Furthermore, earlier in 2014, the then governor of Central Bank, Lamido Sanusi Lamido, alleged that about $20 billion was not remitted to the Federation account by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, a claim that was later dismissed. Was this allegation thoroughly investigated without bias? Considering the fact that this allegation was made in a year preceding general elections and just before a fiscal era where Nigerians are now being asked to tighten their belts, we are compelled to ask where recent huge campaign donations are coming from, and for what purpose such humongous donations in clear violation of the law are made. It appears the PDP campaign slogan for the 2015 election is "to hell with the poor." In the midst of these provocations, a supposedly successful transformation agenda is being peddled as the basis of re-election for 4 more years. We have failed to admit that our economic growth is not so much the result of astute fiscal and monetary policy as it is of the global steering of the 4 winds of the earth. In our monoproduct economic structure, international political and military crisis, especially among oil-producing states, has been the cause of our claimed economic growth due to the resultant high oil prices brought about by a shortfall in the supply of the product.